president is speaking tonight at 9 o'clock. I'm looking forward to watching this. Setting everything aside and just as a fundamental statement of principle, one of the things I have been most impressed about this president over the last 6 years, and I have areas of policy disagreement with him, free trade, for example, but one of the areas where I've been most impressed by this guy is that he plays the long game. He is thoughtful. He's deliberate. He has good judgment, in my opinion. In fact, I think he has very good judgment. I don't think he's being well served by everybody on his staff. I think his messaging and communications are weak. People don't know all the accomplishments of his administration. I mean, it's just extraordinary, some of the stuff that they've done. From stopping predatory lending to soldiers, to stopping lost time, to stopping torture, to increasing spending for the VA, to letting women serve on subs, to equal pay for women, a nuclear arms reduction and disposal agreement, nailing BP, strengthening the EPA. I mean, it just goes on and on, not to mention Obamacare. And the most important of all the things he did is he stopped the Great Depression. Now, I would argue it was not stopped as comprehensively as it could be, but that would require action by Congress. Congress needs to re-regulate the banks, and this Congress will not go along with anything that might help this president or that might help this nation. So, all that said, I think his judgment is excellent, and, we'll see if he's going to bow to this kind of pressure. But as I said, we went through this in 2001. We went through this in 2004 with Nick Berg being beheaded and the 4 guys burned bodies hanging from the bridge in Fallujah. And so what did we do? We went into Fallujah and we basically bombed that town back to the Stone Age. And now it's an ISIS stronghold, or if it isn't, it's damn close to it. Surprise, surprise. And then we see this piece, David Kirkpatrick, September 7, writing in the New York Times about Qatar, which is spelled like Qatar. Qatar's support of Islamists alienates allies near and far is the headline. And his leads 2 sentences. Standing at the front of a conference hall in Doha. Now, Doha is the capital city of Qatar. The visiting sheikh told his audience of wealthy Qataris that to help the battered residents of Syria, they shouldn't bother with donations to humanitarian programs or to the Western-backed Free Syrian Army. Instead, he said, give your money to the ones who will spend it on jihad, not on aid. This is Sheikh Hajjaj al-Ajmi, and he's a fundraiser for al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate. Now, al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate, a good chunk of that is what we know as ISIS. And it goes on to say Sheikh Ajmi and at least a half a dozen others identified by the United States as private fundraisers for al-Qaeda's Syrian franchise operate freely in Doha. And the state of Qatar itself has given money to the Taliban in Afghanistan, to Hamas in Gaza, to rebels from Syria, militias in Libya, allies of the Muslim Brotherhood across the region. Goes on to say, Sheikh Ajmi readily taps donors in Saudi Arabia, sometimes even making their pitches on Saudi and Kuwaiti-owned television networks. Yes, they're doing telethons to raise money for ISIS. The New York Times 3 days ago. Look it up. David Kirkpatrick. I would be astounded, given the political power that Qatar and Saudi Arabia have in the United States. And this was another interesting and long piece. I believe it was in the New York Times over the weekend, might have been in the Washington Post. I'm pretty sure it was the New York Times, about how all these foreign governments, some 30 of them, now have major presences in the United States where they are hiring lobbying and law firms to present their case to Congress, and they're funding think tanks like the Brookings Institution, being funded by foreign governments who then come up with think tank reports that are favorable to those foreign governments. Why? Because of Citizens United. And this is exactly what John Paul Stevens wrote about in his dissent in Citizens United. He said, this is like saying Tokyo Rose can have her way. Tokyo Rose has, during World War II, the woman who broadcast from Japan to our troops saying, you guys are going to lose. Why don't you just give up? in perfect English. Why don't you, this is that. So what we need to be doing is we need to be clamping down on the sources of funding for ISIS, which includes Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and perhaps others. We need to be organizing coalitions of local Sunni groups. President Obama is trying to bring Turkey in on this, okay? Turkey would be a great ally. It's a largely Sunni country, and it's a largely secular government. The problem is Turkey is fighting a war with the Kurds in their south, which is the border with the Kurds in the north of Iraq. And we're supporting the Kurds in Iraq, which Turkey calls terrorists. So, I mean, there's all these weird alliances and interrelations and things that just make this really a mess. And the president tonight is going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to jump in with both feet. I hope not. What would you like the president to say tonight? I'd like him to say, we're going to prosecute the war criminals, Bush and Cheney.